What happens when the fight for life is put in jeopardy? After years of hard work, warriors in the pro life movement in the state of Florida managed to get a heartbeat bill signed. But now a new amendment on this year's ballot threatens to eliminate all of that hard work. Our guest today is going to give us an update on what's going on. We'll talk with Lynda Bell, president of Florida Right to Life and the chair of the Florida Do No Harm Coalition, which We Are the Watchmen Weekly is a part of, will talk to us about exactly what's happening with Amendment 4, what the dangers are, and what we can do as warriors for the Lord to turn the tide. We Are the Watchmen Weekly Live starts right after this. Stay tuned. And welcome back to We Are the Watchmen Weekly. I'm R.C. Williams.
And I'm Juliana Ormond.
The fight for life in the state of Florida has taken on a whole new level of importance. And we're blessed today to have the president of Florida Right to Life with us, Miss Lynda Bell. Lynda, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here. It was so nice meeting you at the homeschool convention as well.
Absolutely, Lynda. And we're also part of the Florida Do No Harm Coalition. Thank you for your work on that. Yes.
We are so proud to have you as a partner with us.
Yeah. So, Lynda, let's talk about it. Let's get some background on you and the great work you've been doing, and then we'll dig into Amendment 4 and what's happening in the battle for life. So please go ahead.
You bet. Yeah, I'm the president and spokesperson for Florida Right to Life, as well as the lobbyist. And I'm also the chairman of the board of National Right to Life. I have been with Florida Right to Life since 1989, and I've been on the National Right to Life board for probably 30 years as well. It's just been a labor of love. It's where God called me to be. And I've been even when I was an elected official for 10 years, I was the mayor of Homestead, vice mayor. I was a Miami-Dade County Commissioner where I served as vice chair. So I have a lot of political experience as well as in the realm of life. And it's just been, even while I was elected official, I always was a part of Florida Right to Life. I never stopped being a part of that. And, much to the chagrin of some of my political friends, I never stopped pro-life because the other was very important, but this was my part of my calling. So I was not going to ever abandon this. So here we are after many, many years of fighting for life, fighting for common sense legislation that protects women and girls. And here we are after passing parental consent. So parents should actually have to consent to their minor girls' abortions. We have women's right to know, where women should have the ability to know what happens to their body and within their body when they have an abortion. We have a 24-hour waiting period, which almost every surgery in this country and in the state, you just don't walk in the door and get surgery. You have consultations, you have x-rays or testing, and then you come back. Well, we implemented that in Florida with a 24-hour waiting period. Then now we have the heartbeat bill, the Heartbeat Protection Act. And we're very, very pleased about that. And that allows abortion up until 6 weeks. And it has the carve-out exceptions of rape and incest, life of the mother, medical emergency, and human trafficking. So those are where the exceptions are. So we're in a very good place in Florida, but the enemy is not to have that. So Planned Parenthood and the ACLU got to work over a year ago, and they got this language. First, in fact, their language was quite different in the beginning. It was very long, and they quickly changed it and abbreviated it to this very, very short ballot summary and ballot language, very deceptive and very brief. And they got enough signatures to be placed on the ballot, which immediately triggered Supreme Court review. The Florida Supreme Court on April the 1st, April Fool's Day, perfect, decided to allow this very deceptive language to go to the ballot. It was a 4-3 decision. The 3 women said it should not be allowed to proceed to the ballot as it was deceptive, vague, and ambiguous. 3 of the men that are on the court should have known better. 2 of them were appointed. Oh, sorry about that. 2 of them were appointed by Governor DeSantis. And so you would have thought that there's no way that this would have ever been allowed to go to the ballot. And even the men, 2 of the men who actually agreed to allow it to go to the ballot, it should have been actually a 6-1 decision because LaBarga is very liberal and we know we will never get him. But to lose the three other men was very, very disappointing. And they even stated things like, we know it's vague, we acknowledge it's ambiguous, but since the summary is consistent with the language, we'll allow it and we'll let the voters decide. One of the Supreme Court justices actually said, we're not here to call balls and strikes. And I was like, that's exactly why you're there. That's exactly your job, is to call balls and strikes. And if it's bad language, it's your job to throw it out. And so here we are. We are facing the biggest threat of our lives when it comes to the unborn, women and girls. And those are our three main topics. So Florida Right to Life, as soon as we heard the word on April the 1st, I could barely sleep. I was sharing with a friend. I saw another organization pop up, and we really wish them well. But I saw the messaging, and I saw some of the similar messaging that failed in other states. And so that brought me a little bit of pause. And so I was concerned. And I saw, like, without going into the wording, but I thought, oh, that's just not strong. That's not going to move the needle as far as Floridians. And so I went to church on Sunday. I attend Corinth Baptist Church in a little old county, it's not even a city, but in Liberty County in Hosford. So how you like that? I moved from the Miami-Dade County area to that area. So big difference. So I was talking to a friend, and I had been praying about it and talking to a friend, and she says, whatever happened to the Hippocratic Oath? And I said, yeah, Hippocrates is rolling in his grave right now. And so I woke up the next morning, and I just woke up. You ever just wake up and you're wide awake?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I woke up, and it doesn't happen to me often. It usually takes a couple cups of coffee. And so I woke up with a start, and I just woke up, and I sat up, and in my mind was, do no harm, Florida, do no harm. And I know that my conversation with a friend, when we talked about the Hippocratic Oath, and I got out of bed, and I went and bought donoharmflorida.org, donoharmflorida.com, do not harm FL, donoharmfl.org, .info, blah, blah, blah. So we bought all these domain names, right? Well, I bought two of them immediately, and the other ones a day or two later. Immediately called my friend Lori Bontel, which everybody knows. She's a fabulous woman, fabulous organizer. And she was like, I'm in. And so we began right away. I began looking. I talked to somebody else about a website. And then it just comes to pass that a very good board member of ours, his wife just happens to message me and says, I do websites. And I was like, oh my goodness, because I was looking for someone to build our website right away. Mm-hmm. So Tara Bana is now our web designer, graphic artist. She's the one that makes all of our words look pretty. So I do words, but I don't do pretty. I just do the words. I don't do graphics. I don't do websites. And so Lori and I got busy, and we created this card. And I call it a rack, RACK card, because it just fits perfectly in the racks.
Right.
And we have, at the homeschool conference a week ago, we gave out 6,000 of these cards. And what was happening, and because you're a part of by the way, we began building the coalition. Before we knew it, we had 16 organizations representing hundreds of thousands of their own members joining, individual doctors, just individual people that represent their pro-life community, even not pro-life community, just their church community, and just concerned people are joining. So we've become this very organic grassroots organization. We're not backed by any big politicians or anything like that. It's just a bunch of hardworking, very concerned, pro-faith base. We've got our Israel representation. We've got our African-American representation, Hispanic. I mean, we've got representation in all 67 counties. I mean, God, this was such a God thing. I can't tell you. We had our verbiage, our language, our website. We had everything ready to go. Our 2-page fact sheet, information sheet. We had everything ready in less than 3 weeks.
That's awesome.
2 of us are volunteers, and we were only paying one person. That was to do the website. Now, how is that not God?
It's all God.
It's all
Amen.
God. So now we have weekly Zooms. We're getting our focus in the beginning is messaging, message to build up this great organic coalition. And then as of June 1st, so as of tomorrow, we have to enter into the fundraising mode because it takes money to message. And so we haven't been pushing the fundraising at all. We just took half of April and all of May. We've been on, by the way, many of our coalition members have been on TV, radio. Many of us are kind of multiplying ourselves all over the state of Florida. Debbie Healy with Women Impacting the Nation. She did 3 services last Sunday. We had Randy Osborne with Florida Eagle Forum, spoke at his church, did a phenomenal job. Dr. Littell has been speaking in different places, Dr. Peck, just different members of the coalition. So it's not any one of us, it's all of us working together. And you know what we do in our group too? We don't have any like climbing each other. It's like, you want to go speak, go, let us equip you. You want to go over here, go, let us equip you. And so that's been the beauty. We don't say, oh no, you can't do this or you can't do this. And then when someone in the coalition speaks, whatever, then we put it on our social media and we promote their message. And so it's just been a beautiful blending of our work. I spoke with somebody as I was driving to the convention last week with a national organization. And she was indicating that this national group might like to be a part of Do No Harm Florida. They found us. So, and interestingly enough, I said, well, go take it back to your leadership and let me know. And when I explained to her what I was doing, she said, I think you don't know it, but I think you may have created a model for the entire nation when it comes to fighting these things. I said, I didn't think about that. She goes, I think you have. So just to jump in, do you want me to jump into the message of what is on the ballot?
Yeah, Lynda, that was going to be our next set of questions. Can you help us understand what's on the ballot in Amendment 4? And then as a secondary question, can you help us? We've talked about this a lot, both in our publications and at speaking engagements. Why is it that the other side of this conversation continues to have the high ground and win battles, at least up until now?
Yes, thank you for saying that. I received that up until now. You know, the enemy is just loaded. I think they've already raised close to $20 million, the Planned Parenthood side. And you're so right. Let's think about that. So Florida Right to Life helped organize this coalition. I'm basically a co-founder. We helped organize this. So the media would go, well, you're just another pro-life group. But they don't overlook the fact that Planned Parenthood and the ACLU got this put on the ballot. Well, Planned Parenthood's the largest abortion provider in the country, but they don't say, well, you're just trying to save your paycheck. You're just trying to do a little bit of financial self-preservation. They get a pass. The left always gets a pass. The enemy gets a pass. Everything I've seen in the secular media is posing us in a negative light and posing this in a positive light. Poor girls, poor women, they're not going to get abortions. They're going to die. I mean, the same arguments that we heard in the 1970s, we're hearing again today. And I just want to say, hello, it's 2024. Roe versus Wade's called and they said, you can go home now because it's done. And they just lie and lie. And I always say the pro-abortion side or the left, they have to lie to win. We just have to tell the truth and get it to enough people. And I've always said that we just have to overwhelm them with the truth. So they have an advantage in the media. And that's part of why we have to raise funds, is because we have to get into the media. So let's look at this title. This is our 2-page fact sheet, and it's very simple to understand. What I've done here is just write the title, the language, and the summary. And then we do a bit of a red letter lining to show the truth about it. And then on the back, it breaks it down. We're in red letters, they're in black, just to make it as simple for people to understand. These cards we printed for churches, for Republican Party groups, for any organizational areas where you just hand them a card. and we wanted to make it as simple as possible. And so let's jump in really quickly. The ballot title says Amendment to Limit Government Interference with Abortion. So that sounds great. Oh yeah, we all want to limit government, right? So then let's jump into the actual language. It says the following language would be added to the state constitution, except as provided in Article 10, Section 22. No law shall prohibit, penalize, delay, or restrict abortion before viability or when necessary to protect the patient's health, as determined by the patient's healthcare provider. Now, in the summary, they added one line in the summary, and it says this amendment does not change the legislature's constitutional authority to require notification to a parent or a guardian before a minor has an abortion. Here's a dirty little secret about that. They had to put that in there because parental notification is in our Florida Constitution. So that wasn't anybody being generous. They have no choice. It's in there. Believe me, if it wasn't in the Florida Constitution, it would have been in their summary. So what our job to do then is really break it down. So when it says no law shall prohibit, penalize, delay, or restrict abortion, that's exactly what that means. That's probably the only, I would say, really honest statement in this entire ballot language, because it says, now think about that, no law. That means no law. So every single law that we've passed, common sense legislation to protect women and children, is gone. I mean, every law would just be like dumped in the trash bin immediately if this were to pass. So you can't prohibit abortion. No law shall prohibit. You can't penalize. Well, who's the only one that would be penalized? The abortionist. So basically, this is the Abortionist Protection Act. So no matter what this abortionist does, no matter what happens in his abortion clinic, no matter what he does, maybe harms somebody. I mean, I listen to 911 calls all the time of ambulances being called to abortion clinics, perforated uteruses, somebody's hemorrhaging, somebody's bleeding, somebody's coding, on and on. So what penalties? Is no, you can't penalize them in law, and you can't delay an abortion. So you can't delay anything. So 24-hour waiting period is gone. Now, if you can't delay, that means a little girl can walk into an abortion clinic and get an abortion that day because you can't delay it according to this. And then it says, or restrict. So it's removed. That would mean if this passed, the only surgical procedure or the only procedure in Florida that would be 100% constitutionally protected would be abortion. It would be like the sacred cow of all procedures. It's that bizarre. It's that absurd. Now, when it says before viability or when necessary, let's take that viability. We all determine viability as when a baby can live outside the womb. That's still a big baby, first of all. And those babies, when aborted, experience pain. Those are painful later term abortions. But it doesn't really matter because it's not really viability. It doesn't really mean that because it says as before viability or when necessary or to protect the patient's health. Well, how is health defined? Financial health, emotional health, of course, physical health. And so the average person, what does the average person think? Health. That means my life. My life's in danger. So the average Floridian is going to think, oh, well, that's a life exception. It's not. It's a health exception. We saw during the Roe era that health can mean anything the abortionist and the mom decide it to be. Anything. So basically, you've guaranteed painful late-term abortions through birth with this amendment, through birth. And then it says, as determined by the patient's healthcare provider. Guess what? Healthcare provider doesn't say physician. It doesn't say a doctor. It says healthcare provider. So if you go to the state of Florida's website, it will tell you the definition of healthcare providers: physical therapist, the receptionist in an abortion clinic, your podiatrist. Those are all health. There's so many more, by the way. That's just a few. I believe pharmacists might be in there. These are all healthcare providers. Doesn't say doctor or physician. So just that alone, just how deceptive the wording was, it should have been disallowed to ever see the light of day on a ballot, because what is the one rule about constitutional amendments? They must be clear and unambiguous. This is as clear as mud. And this is designed this way. And if they can get away with this in Florida, they're going on tour. They're going on tour. So it goes on to say, or when necessary, protect the patient's health as determined by the patient's healthcare provider. So basically, the wild, wild west, the wild, wild south with abortion. We would then, what would be the ramifications of that? No parental consent. So a little girl, and they don't define notification. They don't define it. Is it a letter in the mail? Is it just a call? Hey, Susie Q's here getting an abortion. Thanks, you've been notified. Click. That's notification. Wow. It's not consent. All they have to do is check a box. Notification, check. By the way, even if they did it wrong, even if they didn't, what does it say right here? No law. No law shall penalize. No law shall delay. No law shall restrict. So it doesn't even matter if they don't follow the rules because this says no law. So if you really, once you explain this to people, even people who aren't necessarily pro-life, they realize this is way too radical for me. This is way too, it goes off the cliff. It doesn't go to the cliff. It goes off the cliff. And our little children, our girls, Florida has a human trafficking problem. And I'm sure Florida, I think we're number 3. I think it might be the Miami area, number 3. Don't quote me on that, but I know we're very, very high. Now, can you imagine the little girl, 13, 14, she can be taken to an abortion clinic either by a much older boyfriend, a man, or maybe her sex trafficker. She has a little piece of paper in her hand and says, this is the phone number of my mom, just call her. And who is it on the other end of the phone? It's the trafficker. So there's just no protection for women. What about all of our regulations for safe, quote unquote, safe abortions? What about the cleanliness standards? What about inspections? I think it's gone. Everything is gone. And we're going to see, if this were, we pray it does not, but if this were to pass, we will see a reverberation for the next 20 years on women being harmed physically, emotionally, psychologically, girls being ushered into abortion clinics at will. And then not only that, we'll become the abortion tourist destination. Yep. Because the states that surround us that have stricter abortion laws, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, where are they going to go? They're going to come right into Florida. It's not that long of a drive, especially if you come to North Florida or the Panhandle. They're going to come straight in, and you're going to see abortion clinics pop up all along the Florida border. And you're just going to see that. It's a peninsula, so it'll be interesting. But especially in the North Florida area, you'll see that happen. We will become the abortion destination. And we have, in Florida last year, there was about 85,000 abortions, which is bad enough. But if this were to pass, that would multiply exponentially, and women and girls would be at risk. So I'm not exaggerating. This is so not hyperbole. This is truth. This is facts. I showed you the fact sheet that we came up with, just the 2-pager, simple, wonderful to fold up and put in bulletins. That is something you take home and really read when you want to understand it. And we created these rack cards that I know you saw. They were everywhere. Mm-hmm. We saw these on so many tables at the convention. I think we had them on about 7 or 8 tables. People were walking around and coming back and taking, can I take 100? Can I take 150? And we were like, absolutely you can. And yes. Also you can go right to the website. Since the convention, we've had 3 very, very large orders through the website. We do a complete drop ship right through the website. These cards also have a QR code on the back. Mm-hmm. Our fact sheet has a QR code. Our banner has a QR code. I can't tell you how many times these were scanned. So the website, what's the first thing that you see an action on our website? Register to vote. Mm. Yeah, we're the only organization fighting Amendment 4 that actually has a voter registration component. You have to encourage people. We had students walking by who were 17, like, you can register to vote. You can do it right through here. Right now, you can register to vote when you're 17, and when you're 18, your card will arrive in the mail. We had two of them come by who were going to be 18 before November's election. So they were taking this information. And this information is so easy to understand. It just simply says, say no to allowing late-term abortions through birth. Say no to removing all protections for women and children. And say no to eliminating parental rights. And then we say vote no. And if you look at the first two letters of November, it says no. So November says no November. So we're trying to be a little clever.
So I'm sorry, Lynda, I actually had a grandson who was 6 weeks early. He was literally 4.5 pounds. The thought of any child being killed like that is most importantly, it is unbelievable. But most importantly, of everything that you've been saying is they're legislating themselves power. They're literally a gang of criminal cartel people are together doing things against our betterment. They're there to protect us and protect our sovereignty. Instead of them doing that, they're creating, things and laws and ways and culture that is so anti, what God would ever ask us to have here on earth. It's just sick to think about it. So I really appreciate the fact that you're taking the lead in hey, this is an issue. This is how we did the messaging for it, because, RC and I always talk about messaging and how important it is. We do that with our market research company. We always talk about messaging. And if we can get the messaging correct, meaning the truth out there, because the left, they've been lied to. We were told it's a clump of cells. No, it's not. Right. No, it's not.
We were all told that, weren't we? I remember when I wasn't pro-life. I remember I'm a Jewish Christian, and I remember, and I had a wonderful mother. I was raised by a single mother. She raised 6 kids by herself. I had a very absentee father, and she tended to be a little more on the liberal side, but she would never, ever have gone for this. Never, because she had too much sense. And she was a little on the liberal side, because that's just the way she was brought up. And then we were brought up like that. So when I became this just amazingly pro-life conservative Jewish Christian, it was like, what happened to my daughter? But so I wasn't always pro-life, which gives me a great advantage, because I know how they think. I know how the left thinks. And it gives me a great, and I remember not being pro-life. I remember writing a paper in high school on why abortion, because I graduated high school in 1975. So abortion had only been legalized 3 years by the time I graduated. And I remember writing a paper about why abortion should remain legal. And I had an excellent teacher who said I made excellent arguments, but I was still wrong. So he was obviously pro-life. And so anyway, I say all that to say that we have to not only know how to message it, but we have to know how they think. We have to appeal to how they think. We can't just always appeal to our base. We are going to win. Now, even our Christians, our churches, shamefully, a lot of our pastors are not preaching the word about this. Mine is. I'll make that very clear. Mine is like, bring me your literature. I want it all. I want it in this church. And he understands you can put this all day long in your church. There's nothing to prevent you. This lie about churches not being able to be involved is being exposed at every church. And they realize you can talk about this, and you should be talking about this from the pulpit. That's right. You should be. This is your job. And if a pastor can't talk about this in the pulpit, I will tell you right now, he shouldn't be in the pulpit.
That's right.
Amen.
Yeah, I have no problem saying it. And I spoke at a church, and there's one who will send the pastor an email saying you should keep politics out of the church. And I'm like, what do you think Jesus did? I mean, he went after the leaders of the church, the temple. They were the politicians of the day. When he called the politicians you brood of vipers, how is that telling you to stay out of the church? So I tell them, if you don't want to talk about it, send me in. I have no problem.
My entire story is about how the church abdicated their role and how I was victimized. Me and many millions and millions of women as children being victimized because, they were not there. Or they were there and they were not doing what they should be doing. They were nefarious, right? So it's time for us to get back to, what is the church? The church really is you and me.
It is.
Right. Well, what we're doing, Lynda, it's saying, you know what, I am the church and I'm going to take responsibility for this portion of what it is that I can do, that God has ordained for me to do, because that's my responsibility.
Amen.
And if this government thinks that we're going to sit back and we're going to continue to allow what has been happening, no, I don't think so. We're pushing back, because at some point you have to say, really? June 1st is, Pride Month. I'm sorry, that's God's month. People get married in June. What they're doing to women, men in sports, I mean, the transsexual stuff that's happening, this is directly targeted at us and then to our children.
Absolutely.
No.
What better tool? What better tool of Satan than to attack, first of all, the babies, then to attack our youth, than to attack God's creation itself, God's plan for marriage, God's plan for procreation. What a better thing to do, and to tell a man he can be a woman he can be a man. And by the way, all of that only hurts women. It never hurts the men. This is an attack on women. Where are the so-called feminists? They're too busy shouting, "Shout your abortion." They don't care about women. And I'll be bold enough to say, who was the main sponsor of getting this on the ballot? Planned Parenthood and the ACLU. What happened to the so-called American Civil Liberties Union? It's completely now just a leftist, I believe it's just a leftist propaganda arm of the Democrat Party now. And they don't even back up civil liberties. I mean, it's just amazing. And the fact that you would have them as one of the sponsors of this ballot language is just gross. So the bottom line is that our women are under attack. Our children are certainly under attack. Our babies have been under attack. And if you think, and I tell elderly people all the time, if you think this is going to stop with abortion and it's going to stop with attacking your children, they're coming after you. When we saw that in COVID, we saw how the elderly were disposable. We saw what happened in New York, and we saw what happened in Michigan when they just put COVID patients in nursing homes. And the most vulnerable people were left to get sick and die, because elderly can be expensive and then they will be disposable. And I've been saying this since 1989, that if you can destroy in the womb, you can destroy as they get towards the tomb. I mean, there is no exceptions. And Florida Right to Life has been fighting in Florida against pro euthanasia legislation, and even an expansion of hospice. We had to fight. And hospice, I'm not saying hospice is bad at all. There are wonderful hospices out there, but the hospice that we encountered, they had an industry that was trying to do an expansion of hospice to include the non-terminally ill. And so when I went up to speak against it, it was a Republican sponsor who's a great pro-lifer. And when I said, this is for the non-terminally ill, she said, no, it's not. And I said, with all due respect, Senator, checked out your legislation. She turns behind her, and her young aides behind her open the laptop and start feverishly typing. And they started nodding that, yes, she's right. So the people who brought her the bill didn't bother to tell her that this hospice expansion included non-terminally ill, because when it becomes big money, and then you start working, and I'm not saying this about all hospices at all, but when you start making money on end of life care, or you make money on ending life, and insurance companies, then if an organization starts working for the insurance company and not the patient, that's when you have the dangers. So I see it all. And this is just, we talked about the slippery slope back in the 70s. We're at the bottom of the slope. We're at the very, very rock bottom of the slope. And so I just encourage people to go to Florida Right to Life's website. It's just FRTL as in FloridaRightToLife.org. You can go to DoNoHarmFL.org. You can we can drop ship you thousands of these. And all we ask is that you help us to defray the cost, but it's a donation. You don't have to. So if you say, I want 100 of them and I can't afford them, we'll get them to you anyway. That's what we're raising money for, because these little cards, these fact sheets, our website, it's multiplying. And we've got to, and my focus now too is getting in churches. If the pastors will do it, that's more powerful than me getting in there. If the pastor speak, because that's their spiritual leader. And so if a pastor says, I love your information, but I want to preach about it, I'm like, yes, that's exactly what we want. But any church that I can get into, I want in. If I can't get in, we've got somebody. If I can't do it that day, we've got somebody in our Do No Harm Florida Coalition that will get in those churches that can. That's why we have people all over on the East Coast, on the West Coast. I'm headed to Miami in August, so I'm going to try to see if I can't book some churches in Miami while I'm there to try to maximize my time. But I just really appreciate you guys helping us get the word out and being a part of us. Being a part of us is really exciting. And I'm glad that you saw the vision right away. You saw it. And I love that. I just love it. You get it. You get it.
Mm-hmm.
Lynda Bell, Florida Right to Life, Florida Do No Harm Coalition. Thank you so much for being on We Are the Watchmen Weekly Live.
Thank you so much for having me. May the Lord richly bless you all.
Thank you.